The air in the lawyer's office was thick with the scent of old paper and suppressed greed, a fitting atmosphere for the unraveling of my husband's final wishes. I sat stiffly in a leather chair, my fingers trembling against its arms, while our son, Ethan, pressed close to my side. At 14, he possessed a quiet maturity that often startled me, a solemnity forged in the crucible of his father's sudden passing. Around us, Michael's family, his brother Richard, sister-in-law Clara, and their 2 grown children, leaned forward with predatory anticipation. Their eyes darted between the mahogany desk and me, their expressions a blend of pity and disdain. They'd never approved of me. The unassuming schoolteacher Michael had chosen over their world of hedge funds and inherited privilege. To them, I was an interloper, a woman who'd trapped a wealthy man with a pregnancy. Their judgment had calcified over 20 years of marriage, hardening into contempt they no longer bothered to mask. Michael's death had been a brutal blow. A heart attack at 56, swift and merciless, leaving no time for goodbyes or guidance. In the weeks since, I'd navigated a fog of grief while fielding veiled threats from Richard about contesting the will if it favored me unduly. Ethan had become my anchor, his steady presence a reminder that survival wasn't optional. We'd clung to each other in the hollow silence of our home, where Michael's absence echoed in every room. Now, in this sterile office, the last vestiges of our life together hung in the balance. Mr. Harrison, the family attorney, adjusted his spectacles and unfolded the document. His voice, dry and methodical, filled the room as he recited bequests, charitable donations, heirlooms to distant cousins, a vintage car collection to Richard. Each clause drew approving nods from the others. Clara's lips curled into a faint smile when a beach house in the Hamptons passed to her children. I kept my gaze fixed on my lap, tracing the frayed edge of my coat sleeve. Michael and I had discussed his will, vaguely years ago, but life had distracted us. I'd assumed security, if not generosity. Ethan's hand found mine, squeezing gently. Then came the disposition of the core estate. The primary residence, investment portfolios, liquid assets. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. To my wife, Eleanor, he read, I bequeath the sum of $1, as a symbol of my enduring affection. A beat of silence. Then Richard snorted. Clara clapped a hand over her mouth, shoulders shaking. Their son, Alex, let out a bark of laughter. $1. Richard sneered, loud enough for the room to hear. Even Michael knew she was a gold digger. Poetic justice. Humiliation scalded my cheeks. My vision blurred as their laughter swelled, cruel, guttural sounds that stripped me bare. I'd sacrificed my career to raise Ethan, managed Michael's household through his relentless corporate climbs, nursed him through illnesses. That dollar was a slap, a public declaration of worthlessness. Panic clawed at my throat. Our savings were negligible. My teaching salary couldn't cover Ethan's tuition. We'd lose our home, our stability, everything. Ethan stirred beside me. I braced for his tears, his confusion, but instead he stood. Tall for his age, with Michael's sharp cheekbones and my dark, serious eyes, he faced the room with unnerving stillness. The laughter stuttered, fading under his unblinking gaze. He didn't shout, didn't flinch. When he spoke, his voice was clear as ice cracking on a winter pond, each word deliberate. But I inherit everything with Mother as trustee. 7 words. The room froze. Richard's smirk vanished. Clara's manicured fingers dug into her husband's arm. Mr. Harrison gave a slow, confirming nod. Correct, he said. The subsequent clause establishes that Ethan James Caldwell is the sole beneficiary of the residual estate. Until his 25th birthday, his mother, Eleanor Caldwell, will serve as trustee with full discretionary powers over all assets. He elaborated trust structures, fiduciary duties, tax implications, but the damage was done. Ethan's words had cleaved the room. The laughter hadn't just ceased, it had curdled into shock. That dollar wasn't dismissal. It was insulation. Michael had shielded me from their greed by entrusting our son's future to my care, knowing I'd protect it fiercely. The estate flowed to Ethan, but through my hands. I controlled it all. The shift was instantaneous. Richard surged forward, sputtering about undue influence and legal challenges. Mr. Harrison coolly referenced no contest clauses. Any challenge would forfeit their own bequests. Clara's eyes narrowed on me, venomous, but I barely registered it. Ethan's hand was back in mine, warm and steady. In that moment, I saw Michael's cunning. He'd known his family's venom. That dollar was a decoy, a sting to make them reveal themselves before the true will. The trust was unveiled. And Ethan, our quiet, watchful son, had seen through it too. He'd known the documents I'd wept over at midnight, the ones Michael had explained to him during fishing trips, man-to-man talks I'd assumed were about baseball. Afterward, in the muted light of the parking garage, I pulled Ethan close. "How did you know?" I whispered. He shrugged, a ghost of Michael's wry smile on his lips. "Dad told me they'd come for you. Said I had to be ready." The trust wasn't just about money. It was a lesson in vigilance. Michael had armed our son to protect us both. In the months that followed, Richard's legal threats fizzled. The estate, vast and complex, became my domain. I sold the Hamptons house, liquidated non-essential assets, and established scholarships in Michael's name. Gestures of control, not vengeance. Ethan returned to school, his grades sharper, his posture straighter. We didn't flaunt wealth. We built security. I hired financial advisors, learned about equities and trusts, and revived my teaching career part-time. The transformation wasn't triumphant. It was arduous, a daily defiance of the helplessness they tried to impose. Once, at a charity gala funded by the trust, Richard cornered me. "You think you won," he hissed. "You're still the help, Eleanor. Just with nicer drapes." I sipped my champagne, meeting his glare. "I'm Ethan's trustee," I said softly. "And you're the man who laughed when my husband's coffin was barely cold. So no, Richard. I don't think about you at all." Ethan's words didn't just change that room. They changed us. They were a shield forged in love and foresight, a reminder that worth isn't measured in bequests, but in the quiet strength passed between hands in a lawyer's office. Michael's final gift wasn't the money. It was the revelation that our son had inherited his father's courage and my resilience. And in the end, that was the only legacy that mattered. The memory still aches, a scar over my heart. But when I see Ethan now, a young man who speaks softly but carries 7 unshakable words in his bones, I know Michael's will was never about dividing an estate. It was about ensuring that when the wolves came, our son would know how to stand between them and me. And he did. Without fanfare. Without hesitation. With 7 words that silenced a room and rebuilt a world.